Good morning. This is quite unique. After having been coming to church here for 43 years, I think this is the first parking lot service I've been a part of, and pretty exciting. Couple things I'm thankful for before I give a word of testimony. I was telling my kids, you hear a lot of gloom and doom. I'm glad that we have a pastor that's kind of having fun with this. And if you could see him running around, it's kind of interesting. He's kept a positive light on things, and I'm just thankful that we have that. I told my kids, I said, he still has a little youth pastor flowing through him, but that's a good thing. I'm thankful for our church, just looking out and seeing, I think there's only about 2 or 3 spots open. That's a blessing to know that you want to be at church. And I've heard numerous people say, man, I missed my bus route, I missed my Sunday school class, I missed different things going on. That's a blessing to be a part of a church that wants to be in their place on Sunday morning. So praise the Lord for that. I'd like to just kind of with my testimony really talk about 2 things. One, God's, I guess, reminded me of more specifically in the recent months. And then the other one, for the last year and a half, God's been teaching me some things. I think most people that are halfway serious about the Christian life desire to have revival. I know really the majority of my life I've heard lots of sermons on revival and a newer obedience to God and that type of thing. And I've been around our church long enough to see people have that. And I think the majority of us would say, I want revival in my life. But I would agree with that, and I want it too. But what I found is it doesn't always come the way that we want. We kind of want revival on our terms. I guess sometimes I feel like if my life is peaceful and if everything seems to be going good, I guess God's giving me revival. And 2 things that God showed me, I guess, first of all, was He's reminded me of His compassion. I'm so thankful for His compassion. All this chaos going on. And most of us, a lot of us, I think, are reading through the Bible this year. And we kind of go through a couple chapters. But I guess recently, Pastor Damon said, hey, we have more time, spend more time with the Lord. And so I've tried to find passages that deal with storms and trials and tests. And it's pretty easy to find that in the book of Psalms. And just in the last 2 or 3 weeks, I hit Psalm 46. And Psalm 46 caught my attention. I won't read the entire psalm. But it's interesting as it begins. It says, to the chief musician for the sons of Korah. And it goes on to say, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore will not we fear, though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea. And it goes on to say in verse 11 specifically. Let me get there. My page is blowing. It says, the Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. It also references at verse 7, the Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Now, in January, we were reading the life of Jacob. Somewhere in February, early March, I don't remember, but we were reading the life of Korah. And both really are not ideal people. Korah seemed to have a pretty positive life, but we see him rise up in rebellion, and of course it didn't end up very well for him. Jacob seemed to just live a mess. And then we see some positive things happen at the end of his life. And I guess as I was reading through Psalm 46, just the idea of God's so full of compassion that even Korah, in the rebellion that he showed to Moses and to the leadership, God still influenced his family and had an influence in his sons. And then Jacob, it's interesting when you read the Bible, you see the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, and you kind of get used to hearing that. But in Psalm 46 and a couple other Psalms, it references the God of Jacob. And I'm just reminded to think, Jacob was a deceiver, a supplanter. He was a mess. But I was reminded that God can use messes. God can use people that really we make a mess of things. We blow it. I'm so thankful for God's forgiveness and for God's compassion. That's what God showed me, first of all, more recently. The second thing is I'd like to just talk about the care and the consistent care that God provides for us. I don't know, some year and a half ago, God began to really stir some things up in my own life, and it was easy to look around and blame a couple other people, and I'd say, you know what, they're just doing this, and they're really messing my life up. But God began to reveal me. He says, Eric, you're the problem. You're the one I'm trying to get your attention. It began to reveal some pride and some things in my life that I just kind of gotten used to, I got comfortable with. And it's been interesting as He slowed my life down really for the last year and a half. And even as we're seeing now, our life slowed down, but God's really been able to work in my life specifically, personally. I've seen some wonderful things in our home. I've seen God open up a Bible club at Chesterton High School. I've seen God working some of our bus teenagers. I've got more of a burden for our teenagers at our church, I think more than ever before. I guess all I'm saying is we don't like revival God's way sometimes. And I guess I'm challenging you because I think as a church, we desire revival. We desire God's blessing, but don't get upset when He tries to revive and change your life His way. Because it's actually not a bad thing. It's really helped my life in a lot of areas. And I pray that that could be an encouragement to you. Don't forget the compassion of God. And don't forget God's consistent care of God in our lives. Thank you.